This is the first video on a book to come out at the end of summer called Prevent, Survive, Thrive. The book's all about breast care, but the book has important messages. And one of the most important of those messages, or there's two important messages. One, young women do get breast cancer. And the other is that when women do have breast problems, oftentimes they have to know more about the doctor to get the right kind of treatment. And one story that stands out in my mind is the story of Michelle Watson, who found a lump at age 22, went to multiple doctors. They told her she was too young or she was too healthy to get breast cancer, only to end up with problems down the line. And we're so lucky and fortunate to have Michelle's mom, Marilyn Watson, and her father's here also, who are going to tell us a little bit about Michelle's story, because Michelle's story is a story that every woman must know if she wants to receive optimal breast care. You must be prepared to know more about your physician about breast care if you're going to get that ideal breast care. And Marilyn, first of all, thank you for sharing this story. I know it's stressful.
It is stressful. Thank you for having us here to share Michelle's story, and we are very hopeful that it reaches a lot of women and that they become empowered to know their own health. And so Michelle was a swimmer for Colorado State, and she found the lump when she was a senior in college. And she went to 3 different doctors, and they told her not to worry. She was too young and too healthy. So she graduated and came home, and she was doing a swim team in Temecula. She had grown up in Anaheim, and we had moved to Temecula because my husband Bill was working on a project for a dam project out there. And so she didn't know very many people, and but she came and she was deciding what to do next, and she decided to coach a swim team. Well, she had a great time doing that, but in her workouts she said, "It hurts when I'm doing my laps in her breastbone area particularly." She also decided that the next step for her was going to be the Peace Corps. Mm-hmm. And so she applied for the Peace Corps, and they wanted to do a physical before they sent her anywhere. So she had the physical. They found the lump that the doctor said not to worry about, and they said, "You have to have a biopsy before we can send you to another place."
I understand that. How big, or what was the lump like at that time? Had it grown much over that time period?
That I can't remember exactly the size of it, but it was large enough that you could feel it, and you could even see it.
Mm-hmm. It was obvious in looking at it that she had that. So this is clearly an advanced breast cancer. She's gone from what was apparently a little bitty lump to an advanced breast cancer, with doctors telling her not to worry. She was too healthy, and I've seen her pictured. She was not only beautiful, but she was the picture of health. So those remarks are an unusual remarks for doctors to make. Usually they just say too young, but in her case, she looks so healthy, it's hard to imagine. But this is the important point. You can be the healthiest person in the world and have a hidden breast cancer. Now, just to go back a step, what should have happened under normal circumstances, but what often does not happen, the doctor feels a lump and says, "Oh, you're too young and you're too healthy, but we know that cancer occurs in young women, so let's just do an ultrasound. It's painless, it's inexpensive, and it's highly accurate. Pop the ultrasound on it, lights up the field, and bingo, you have a cancer." And we know that was an early stage 1 breast cancer with an excellent prognosis. And this is what's so sad, because women are not educated, are not given this information of what to do when your doctor says, "Oh, don't worry." If you find a lump, you need an ultrasound, a diagnostic mammogram. If there's a lump there, you need to do a core needle biopsy. If they don't find anything, you need to be followed closely, like every 2 months, to see if this thing progresses. So there's things, if women are told what to do or aware of what to do, these things can't be prevented. And I think this is such an inspiring example of somebody who looks so young and so healthy, and this confusion from the medical community where they're just not up or alert to these things is what's leading to not just this particular situation, but many others just like it. And we describe many of them in the book.
Yes, and so when she had the biopsy, no doctor had ever suggested she have an ultrasound or a mammogram. Neither of them were ever given to her. So she went in for the biopsy, and the results of it were stage 4. And so that particular doctor felt that we should go see a surgeon to have a mastectomy, but we opted to see an oncologist first.
Which was clearly the right thing to do with an advanced cancer. So just to clarify, on stage 4, it was a bone scan that showed that the tumor had gone from the breast into the bones. That's correct? Because that would make it a stage 4 once it leaves the breast like that. And at that point, stage 4, the most we can hope for is extending survival, but we rarely have a miracle case where it actually goes away up on a stage 4.
Right, and so we did realize that we had moved to Temecula. At that time, there were not a lot of doctors in that area, so we went out of the area, and we used USC Norris Cancer Center, and Dr. Christy Russell became her doctor.
Mm-hmm. Good choice.
And she felt that there was absolutely no reason to have any surgeries since it had metastasized. But it was in the breastbone, which is why Michelle was having trouble breathing when she was working out. So she had many rounds of chemo, and she also had a stem cell replacement at City of Hope, and it went the whole way. It ended up in her brain, and so she had radiation for that, and but she fought hard for 3 years.
She did, and I mean, you go into a lot of detail about what a trooper she was, and she was out spreading the word. And then you and Bill took this as a mission statement. Is that what happened since then? And tell me about Michelle's place.
Okay, well, because we were living in a place where she didn't have a lot of friends that she had known, she decided that she was going to Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, that she wanted to work with a Western doctor but have some of the aspects of an Eastern. And so she was going to school down in San Diego, and she decided that she would like to live down there. So she moved to Pacific Beach and commuted to the college and did her classwork down there. And she loved living down there. She liked being in a young community, and because in Temecula at that time there were no resources, no support.
It's so amazing to think there's so much support available to people now that there are services everywhere. It seems like an access on the internet quite not so good, but still nobody is left out. And yet there she was, really all alone with nobody to share her story with or tell her story. So at some point,
my sister worked for Department of Public Health, or for the state of California, up in Santa Barbara, and so she invited us to come up there because oncology nurses were doing their further continuing education, and she wanted Michelle to tell her story. So Michelle went up, or we took Michelle up there to do that, and there was a surgeon there that was speaking before Michelle spoke. And so he said, quite often I just recommend, if we find a lump, that we wait 6 months, and then
this is the guy giving the lecture, huh? Giving the disinformation. I can't believe it. I do believe it, because there is this kind of stuff that goes on, and it's bizarre. Where's it coming from? But there's a lot of misinformation.
So then after she after she did her talk, he stayed and listened to her story. And then they had just started the breast center up there. And so some of the people that were taking the continuing ed classes invited us to come see their breast center. And so when we went to see it, it was in a little old house that had been donated to them, and it was so warm and welcoming. And Michelle told us, that's what you need to do in Temecula.
I didn't know that. No.
So when we went through the rest of her journey with her, and then about a year after she passed away, we started Michelle's Place.
Just briefly, what's the mission? I know you guys have started from scratch and incredible progress. Can't tell the whole story, but just give me the highlights of what you've accomplished. Don't hold back. I mean, I know you've done some wonderful, wonderful things for the community.
Well, we started with 250 square feet, which was a telephone basically, and a sofa for people to come and for a support group. And we started because a group in Canyon Lake had been together, and they had been raising money so women could get mammograms. So they turned their money over to us. And so our first steps were to give people money to have mammograms done.
Right.
We also did a lot of listening because a big part of Michelle's Place is coming in and listening to their story and what they have to say.
Right.
And then we started getting wigs and hats, and then people gave us prosthesis and bras. So we did all of that. One thing that Santa Barbara had was a library for people to check out materials, and so we started that as well. Santa Barbara gave us some of the ones that they didn't need anymore. And so we have a large library. And then we added support groups. And so we have had support groups from the beginning.
Now, how many staff do you have? I mean, now I know I didn't realize it started like a phone booth, but now it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful. Can you kind of update us to what you're doing now and some of your major projects? I know you've done great things for the uninsured and helping people, particularly before Obamacare was in, but there's a lot of people out there that are underserved, and I know you've done a lot to help them.
Yes, well, we continued. This is our fourth location. We kept moving up in size. We finally have one that is a nice size for us, about 3,500 square feet. We do have 6 staff members, some part-time, some full-time. And we have a Hispanic program as well as an English program. And we felt very strongly, since Michelle was young, that we needed to be educating people. So we do a lot of health fairs all over, and encourage people to do self-exams. We had a situation where
we can probably hold that at a tip, but I know where you're going on this thing, and I want to really focus on that.
Okay.
So just to tell a reader, there's some issues on breast self-exam where there's some differences of opinion between Coleman and Michelle's Place and my ideas, and we're going to have a separate section on that. So we, but
we also were encouraging women, because in the state of California, if you're under 40 and you didn't have insurance, or your insurance didn't cover it, then they would pay for the treatment of breast cancer if you were diagnosed with breast cancer. But the diagnostic part of it was the issue, because it, like you said earlier, it's a mammogram, ultrasound, a biopsy, that whole thing, which can cost up to $2,500 or more. And
just to go there was a lot of emphasis on the screening. We'd find these abnormal mammograms. The patients didn't have, the financial resources to go to the next step, and then at some of those we biopsied that put us in a real bind before they had coverage because we biopsied we'd have cancer. Now we're responsible, and that can go to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
So it was a dysfunctional system that is now large. What is your experience now? Do you think that problem has been properly addressed, or do you see there's a big gap still?
I don't know that it's been properly addressed, but they're working on it, I think. We don't have as many coming in to us for the diagnostic workup. We still have some. Mm-hmm. And we have partnered with facilities so that they can, they give us a very fair price. Mm-hmm. And so we do write grants to have this part covered. And because we feel it's so important for women.
Well, I just want everybody to realize that this is something you do something very special. We want to preserve the memory of Michelle because it's a kind of memory that sticks in one's mind and it proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that one, young women do get breast cancer. Two, if we catch it early, we can cure it. And we've got a lot of young women doing extraordinarily well, but they get their mammogram, they do the self-exam, they come in early, we catch it early, the treatment's less aggressive and the results are so much better. So I think the public owes you a big thanks. Michelle's Place has saved lives. It's made the journey through cancer much easier, and they're building, and they're an enthusiastic group, and just everybody in Temecula and that surrounding area just loves what you guys do, and I love what you do, and I want to support you completely.
Thank you. So I think she's watching us.
I think so too.
And smiling.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for listening.